The stone beneath your palms is sweating. Not water, fear. Limestone warmed by bodies that haven't slept, haven't eaten properly, haven't stopped shaking since dawn. You press your chest against the parapet anyway, because if you pull back, even for a breath, someone else has to take your place and there is no one else left. The air smells like smoke dragged uphill from the south, sharp enough to burn the throat. When you lift your head, the horizon is wrong. Too many sails, too many men spilling out of boats, dark dots that multiply the longer you stare, until your mind stops counting and your stomach simply drops. Below the hill, the world is moving fast, too fast. Cavalry spreads out across the fields like spilled ink, hooves tearing through barley that was supposed to keep your children alive through winter. You hear screaming long before you see bodies fall. Distance doesn't soften the sound, it stretches it, thins it into something worse. You can't tell whose voice it is, which village, which family. You only know that every scream is subtracting time. Someone next to you mutters a prayer, someone else retches over the wall, nothing coming up because there's been nothing solid in his gut since yesterday. You don't tell him to stop. You can't spare the breath. Your hands are wrapped in cloth where the skin split hours ago, hauling rocks up from the ruins behind you. You're not a soldier. None of you are. Your shoulders remember ploughs, nets, oars. They don't remember holding a wall against an army. The gates below are already sealed, not ceremonially, slammed shut, barred with whatever timber could be found before the streets clogged. Inside the city, bodies are stacked vertically now, pressed into alleys that were never meant to carry this much living weight. You can feel it even up here, the vibration of panic travelling through stone. Animals scream too, goats and cattle dragged inside because leaving them out there would be the same as handing food to the men burning your fields. A shout cuts through the noise, pointing. You follow the gesture and see the banners finally snapping cleanly in the wind. These aren't raiders darting in and out. This is a force that came prepared to stay. The ships keep coming. 17, maybe more. You stop counting again. Numbers don't help once they pass what a body can fight. The first village goes up fully now, flames climbing walls you helped repair last spring. The fire doesn't roar like you expect. It crackles, methodical, the sound of work being done. You understand then that this isn't rage, it's procedure. Burn the food, kill the animals, take the people who can be carried, leave the rest to rot or run uphill and suffocate your city from the inside. You think of your wife, not in a clean way, not a memory, just a pressure in the chest where breath should be. You don't know if she made it through the gates. You don't know if she's in the crush below or hiding in a ditch that the riders haven't found yet. The not knowing drills deeper than fear. Fear at least has shape. A horn sounds from the plains, low, controlled. The men down there are not shouting, they are working too. Units peel off, riding hard toward the springs at the base of the hill. You know what that means before anyone says it. Water. You swallow without thinking and realize how dry your mouth already is. Orders ripple along the wall past hand to hand, mouth to ear. No fancy words, just placement. Who stands where? Who has a blade sharp enough to matter? Who can still lift stone without dropping it on their own feet? 800 of you, stretched thin across old masonry that flakes when you hit it too hard. There is no second line, no relief. If you step back, the gap stays open. By midday, the countryside is a grid of smoke columns, black, grey, oily. Each one marks something that fed you. Each one is a calculation being solved against you. You can feel the heat now, not from the fires themselves, but from the sun reflecting off helmets gathering below. They're closer, close enough that you can see faces, calm ones, men who expect to go home afterward. The first arrow lands with a sound like hand-slapping wet clay. It takes a man in the throat 2 paces from you. He drops without noise, surprise frozen on his face, blood pulsing bright and stupid against stone that doesn't care. No one screams his name. Someone drags the body back so it doesn't trip the next man. The arrow storm doesn't come yet. This is testing, measuring distance. You stay low, heart hammering, listening to the hiss of shafts slicing air just overhead. When the ladders appear, it feels almost like relief. Motion you can answer, shapes you can push away. The first one slams against the wall and wobbles, wood groaning. You and 2 others lean into it without speaking, count to 3 without counting, Heave. The ladder tips slow enough for you to see hands scrambling, fast enough that the fall ends in a sound you don't want to identify. There is no cheer, just another ladder coming up. Rocks go over the side, not thrown, dropped. Gravity does the killing. The impact carries up through your arms like striking a bell. Somewhere below something cracks that isn't stone. You don't look. The noise builds fast. Arrows now, thick enough to stitch the air. You crouch, rise, crouch again, moving on instinct the way you do when waves threaten to swamp a boat. Timing. Don't stand too long. Don't waste motion. You see women on the stairs behind you, faces streaked with soot, hauling buckets that slosh dangerously close to bare skin. Boiling water, oil, anything that will fall and cling. They don't scream encouragement. They just work, jaws set, eyes hollow. The wall shudders, not from bodies, from impact. You feel it through your boots first, a dull thump that repeats, then repeats again in the same spot. Siege engines. You don't know the name, but you know what they do. The stone in front of you spiderwebs, dust puffing out like breath from a dying lung. Another hit, closer. Chips slice across your forearm, shallow but hot. Blood mixes with dust and makes mud. Someone yells to plug the gap. There is no material ready, so you step forward. You and others wedge rubble, beams, anything that fits. Furniture. A door ripped from hinges. You brace it with your body because there's nothing else. When the next stone hits, the shock drives air out of your chest so hard you see black. You don't move anyway. If you move, the wall opens. Hours pass like this, compressed into muscle tremors and ringing ears. You forget hunger. Thirst becomes a distant idea. The only thing that exists is the edge in front of you and the men trying to get over it. When night finally bleeds into the sky, the attack doesn't stop. It just gets closer, quieter. You fight shapes now, hands grabbing, blades flashing briefly before disappearing again. You smell blood constantly, iron and rot, until you can't tell if it's yours. At some point the pressure eases, not victory. Pause. The ladders pull back, the drums slow, then stop. Silence drops so suddenly your ears ache. You don't cheer. You can't. You're too tired to feel anything except the weight of your own head. You look down at your hands. They are shaking uncontrollably. You try to close them and fail once before forcing it. Around you, men slump where they stand, backs against stone, eyes open, afraid to sleep because sleep feels too much like dying. Below, the enemy camps are lit now, fires neat and controlled. You understand the message. They can rest. You can't. This was only the beginning, and every muscle in your body knows it. You don't wake up. You surface. Slowly, painfully, as if dragged out of deep water by the hair. Dawn leaks over the wall in a colourless smear, and for a moment you don't understand where you are or why your body feels like it's been beaten with hammers. Then you smell it again. Blood gone sour, smoke soaked into stone, and memory snaps back hard enough to make your teeth clench. Your legs barely hold when you stand. Around you, men straighten in stages, joints cracking, faces swollen, eyes filmed red. No one speaks. Talking costs energy, and energy has become currency more precious than food. Below the wall, the ground has changed overnight. Bodies weren't cleared. They were left where they fell, twisted around ladders, tangled together in shapes that don't look human anymore. Flies are already working. The enemy camps beyond them look rested. Fires controlled. Order intact. A horn sounds again, not urgent, not loud, confident. The sound carries like it owns the air. You feel it settle into your chest, heavy and patient. They start with arrows this time, not probing, sustained. The sky turns into a moving pattern, dark lines arcing down. You flatten against stone as shafts clatter and stick, some skidding harmlessly, others finding meat. A man 2 steps left jerks once and collapses without a sound, an arrow buried deep in his eye. No one can spare the time to close his eyelids. The wall shudders again. Same spot. They learned. Each impact is a calculation, hammering weakness until resistance becomes memory. Dust clouds bloom and hang, turning the morning light into something dirty and unreal. You cough, spit grey sludge, Wipe your mouth with a sleeve stiff from old blood. Inside the city the noise has changed. Less panic now, more suffering. Low moans echo from churches turned into sick rooms. The wounded lie where they were dropped, straw already soaked through. Water is being rationed in measured pores that barely wet the tongue. You hear arguments break out sharp and fast, then stop just as fast when someone reminds everyone that noise doesn't help. Another ladder hits the wall, then another, then 5 more. They're spacing them now, forcing you to choose. You rush left, then right, movements sloppy from fatigue. Your hands miss a grip, scrape stone, tear open skin that hadn't finished closing. Pain flashes white and then fades into the background, joining the others. An enemy soldier crests the wall in front of you, face young, eyes bright with adrenaline. He swings too wide. You don't block. You step in, jam your shoulder into his chest, feel ribs give. You both go down. There's no room to fight clean. You slam your forehead into his nose, feel cartilage collapse, hot blood splashing your face. He screams once before you shove him backward over the edge. You don't watch him fall. The oil comes next. A shout from behind. Buckets tilt. Liquid pours, thick and shining, clinging to armor to skin. The sound that follows isn't like screaming in stories. It's high and animal, short bursts cut off when lung seize. You force yourself not to listen. Listening slows you down. They hit the gate hard before noon. A ram swings into the wood again and again, each strike echoing up through the hill, through your bones. Splinters fly. The hinges groan. Men are pulled from the walls to brace from inside, shoulders locked, feet sliding on stone slick with sweat. You feel the city's weight pressing inward. All those bodies pushing against the same space. All that fear compressed. A section of wall finally gives way with a sound like a tree snapping in half. Stone collapses outward, taking men with it. For a heartbeat the opening gapes wide and black. Then bodies rush to fill it. Yours included. You wedge yourself between broken blocks, back screaming as pressure builds from both sides. Blades flash inches from your face. Someone stabs over your shoulder. Someone else screams behind you when an arrow punches through the gap and keeps going. Time loses shape. There is only action, and the space immediately around your body. Lift, push, strike, duck. Breathe when you can. Don't think about anything beyond the next movement. At some point the arrows slow. The ladders pull back again. Not retreat. Reassessment. You slump against stone, legs trembling uncontrollably. Your hands won't stop shaking. You clamp them between your knees like a child trying to keep warm. Inside the walls the water is almost gone. The cisterns hold, but barely. Each cup is argued over, measured, swallowed with eyes closed. Throats are so dry that swallowing feels like tearing cloth. Children cry without tears. Mothers don't hush them anymore. They don't have the strength. That night the fires outside burn closer. You can see faces clearly now in the flicker. Men laughing, eating, sharpening blades. You realize with a dull, sinking clarity that they are less tired than you are. They can do this again tomorrow, and the next day. Sleep comes in flashes, broken by impact sounds and sudden shouts. Every time your eyes close, you see hands reaching up the wall. When you wake, your jaw aches from clenching. Morning arrives with heat already heavy on the stone. The bombardment resumes, relentless, mechanical. Another section weakens. Another gap forms. Each repair costs flesh. By midday, something shifts, not in the attack, but in you. The fear dulls. Not because danger has lessened, but because your body has no room left for it. There is a flatness now, a cold efficiency. You notice details without reacting. The way blood darkens limestone, the way flies gather faster on the still than the moving, the way sound carries differently when walls crack. Then a shout goes up behind you. Different. Not fear. Something sharp. Electric. A name carried from mouth to mouth, growing louder, distorted as it spreads. You don't understand it at first. You're too deep in survival to process words. The men around you straighten, eyes widen. Someone laughs. Actually laughs. And then starts crying mid-breath. The name keeps coming, swelling, colliding with the noise of battle until it's everywhere, filling the spaces where exhaustion lived. You don't see anything different on the wall. No miracle, no sudden advantage. The enemy is still there, still pressing, still killing. but something has changed in the air like a spark catching dry tinder. The men beside you move harder now, faster, sloppier, but with a violence that surprises even you. They shout as they strike, voices cracking, throwing themselves forward instead of bracing. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't work. But it does something to the men climbing toward you. They hesitate. Just a fraction. Enough. You don't think about faith or symbols or meaning. You only feel the surge, raw and dangerous, burning through pain and fatigue alike. For the first time since the sails appeared, you push instead of hold, and the wall does not fall. The surge doesn't last. Nothing does. By late afternoon, your body remembers what it is, meat stretched past tolerance, and the fire drains out of you as quickly as it came. What's left is a thinner resolve, sharper but brittle, like bones stripped of flesh. The wall still stands, but it stands differently now, scarred, lower. You can see over sections that were solid yesterday. The enemy can see you more clearly too. They change tactics, no rush, no ladders at first, just pressure. Arrows come in steady sheets, not meant to kill so much as pin. Every time you rise, something hisses past your ear. Every time you crouch, the wall shakes under another impact. They are counting breaths. They're waiting for the moment your arms don't lift fast enough. Inside the city, discipline starts to fracture. You hear it in the shouts drifting up stairwells, in the sudden clatter of movement where there should be stillness. Hunger does that. Thirst does worse. A fight breaks out near the cisterns, 2 men, then 3, until someone cracks a skull with a stone, and the rest back away, stunned by how easy it was. The body is dragged aside, water still dripping from the cup clenched in his hand. At the gate, the ram returns. Slower now, heavier. Each swing is answered by a collective grunt from the men bracing behind it, muscles locking, breath synchronized without instruction. You feel the impact through your spine, teeth clicking together. Wood splinters, iron bands bend. You imagine the gate failing and try not to imagine what comes after. A runner stumbles along the wall, face grey, eyes too bright. He's bleeding from the scalp, blood matting his hair, but he keeps moving, grabbing arms, pointing, directing what little reserve exists. You're sent to the breach again. Always the breach. It smells worse there. Damp stone and old blood layered thick. You wedge in, shoulder screaming in protest, and wait. They come in low this time. In low. Shields up. Blades stabbing through gaps. You can't swing. You punch downward with a broken spear shaft, feeling it slide between plates, meeting resistance, then give. The man below howls. Another replaces him immediately. You realize with a kind of distant horror that they have enough bodies to learn from each death. When night falls, it doesn't bring relief. Fires ring the city now, closer than before, their light climbing the walls. The air is thick with smoke and rot. Somewhere below, someone is singing. A low, rhythmic chant, foreign, steady. It crawls under your skin. You grit your teeth until your jaw shakes. Sleep comes standing up, head pressed to stone. You dream of water and wake choking on dust. A man near you slumps and doesn't rise again. You nudge him with your boot. Nothing. You don't tell anyone. You just take the space he was holding. Morning brings a stillness that feels wrong. No arrows, no stones. The enemy camps are quiet, men moving without urgency. You watch them eat. Actually eat. Bread, torn cleanly. Water poured without counting. Your mouth floods and your stomach cramps in response. A horn sounds, not a charge, a call. A small group advances under a white cloth. Truce. Negotiation. The word tastes like ash. You don't cheer. You don't hope. You've seen enough to know what bargains look like when one side is starving. They shout terms up at the wall. Loud. Clear. Surrender the city. Live spared. Those who resist will be put to the sword. You look down at your hands, cracked and swollen, and think of how easily a blade would finish the job your body has already started. Inside, arguments explode. Some men scream to hold, others beg. Someone shouts a number. How many are left? How many wounded? How little water remains? It becomes noise, useless and loud. You tune it out, focusing instead on the faces around you. Farmers, fishermen, men who learned to kill this week. The answer goes back down eventually. Refusal. Not dramatic. Not shouted, just sent, carried by a voice too tired to embellish. The response is immediate. The bombardment resumes with everything they have left. Stones slam into weakened sections, tearing them open. One tower collapses inward, burying defenders in a choking cloud. You hear bones snap like dry twigs. There is no time to dig them out. The ladders surge forward again, more than before, packed tight, men climbing over men. This time they break through. Not everywhere. Not all at once. Just enough. A section of wall caves, creating a slope of rubble that bodies pour up like water finding a channel. The fight turns inside out. It's no longer about keeping them off the wall. It's about killing them faster than they can climb. You're on that slope before you realize you moved. Sliding, scrambling. Blade in your hand, slick with blood that might not be yours. The space is too tight to think. A man lunges. You stab blindly. Something warm splashes your wrist. He falls against you, heavy, and for a terrifying second you think you're going down with him. You shove and he rolls away, eyes already glassy. They come again and again. Someone goes down screaming, clutching a leg that bends wrong. Someone else steps over him without looking. You trip on a body and smash your knee into stone. Pain flares so bright you nearly black out. You bite your tongue until you taste copper and keep moving. Then, as suddenly as it began, it slows. Not stops. Slows. The pressure eases by degrees. The chant from below fractures, voices breaking rhythm. You glance up, breath ragged, and see men hesitating on ladders, looking back over their shoulders. Confusion ripples through the attackers. Orders are shouted, contradicted, shouted again. The wave loses shape. Men back away, dragging wounded with them. Others run, not in panic, but with urgency, as if called elsewhere. You don't chase. You can't. You collapse against the rubble, chest heaving, vision tunneling. Around you, survivors stare in disbelief at the space where enemies were seconds ago. Below, the camps are in motion again. Not forward. Away. Siege engines are being dismantled. Fires stamped out. Lines forming. Not for attack, but for departure. It takes time for the truth to sink in. Time you don't have energy for, but eventually, impossibly, it does. They are leaving. Not defeated in the way stories tell it. Not broken. Calculated away. The cost exceeded the value. The wall held just long enough to make staying unprofitable. Relief doesn't feel like you imagined. It's not joy. It's not triumph. It's a hollowing, a sudden absence of pressure that leaves you dizzy and exposed. You slide down the stone and sit, staring at nothing. The city behind you is wrecked. The wall beneath you is half gone. The men around you are bleeding, shaking, barely upright, and still you are alive, for now. The gates don't open right away. No one trusts silence anymore. You stand on the broken wall watching the enemy camps collapse into motion. Tents struck, poles bundled, carts loaded with the efficiency of men who expect no interruption. It's disciplined, almost polite. That's what frightens you. Armies that flee in panic leave space for mercy. Armies that leave like this are finished with you. When the last of the siege engines comes apart, when the lines of infantry begin to pull back toward the coast, a sound rises behind you that you don't recognize at first. It isn't cheering, it's weeping. Quiet at first, then spreading. A low animal noise as bodies finally give themselves permission to stop holding. Your legs fold without asking. You sit on the stone and stare down at the plain where so many men died trying to climb up to you. The ground is dark with it, churned into mud by boots and blood. Flies lift in clouds as the enemy passes through, unbothered, already moving on to the next task. Inside the city, the news travels slower than the attack ever did. It trickles. People don't rush the gates. They gather in doorways, cling to walls, afraid that movement itself might undo whatever fragile balance kept them alive. Someone laughs too loudly and is slapped silent. Someone else prays and is told to stop. Faith feels dangerous now, like tempting fate. When the order finally comes, it's not shouted. It's passed hand to hand. Unbar the gates, carefully, as if the wood might explode. The hinges scream when they move. The sound cuts through you sharper than any blade. Sunlight spills into the passage, harsh and unforgiving, illuminating bodies slumped against stone, faces grey, eyes hollow. You step forward with the others, not rushing, testing the world beyond the wall like ground after a storm. The countryside is unrecognisable. Fields are black and stinking. Olive trees lie hacked apart, trunks split, branches scattered like broken limbs. Wells are fouled, water surfaces shimmering with something oily. Houses stand roofless, walls charred, doorways gaping like mouths that can't scream anymore. You don't look for your home first. No one does. You look for people. Names are called, hoarse and desperate, carried across open space that should have been familiar. There is no answer for most of them. Groups form and dissolve as survivors realise who is missing. Some fall to their knees immediately, others keep walking, eyes scanning, refusing to accept the shape of absence. Down near the road to the harbour, you find chains, broken links, dropped in the dirt, too heavy for those forced to wear them to carry far. The metal is warm from the sun. You don't need anyone to explain what that means. The enemy didn't leave empty-handed. They took people. The realization spreads with the same sick inevitability as the fire did days ago. A quarter of the faces you're looking for will never appear on these roads. Not today. Not ever. They were marched south under guard, herded onto ships, packed into holds where air runs out fast. You imagine the dark, the heat, the press of bodies. You stop imagining before your chest locks up. Some follow the retreating army as far as they dare, standing on cliffs and watching sails shrink toward the horizon. No one shouts. No one throws stones. There is nothing to throw that would reach that far. The ships carry too much weight to move quickly. You can see that. Human weight. Inside the city, survival turns ugly fast. There is no food left to argue over, no water to ration with dignity. People strip the dead of anything usable without ceremony. Tools, shoes, bits of cloth. You do it too, hands shaking, telling yourself the owner doesn't need them anymore. The wounded die in clusters. Infection spreads where blades cut deep and clean water never comes. The church is empty, then fill again, then empty for good. Bodies are moved outside the walls because there's no room to keep them in. Graves are shallow. Names go unmarked. Days pass. Maybe more. Time feels loose now, unmoored. You work because stopping means thinking. You haul stones back into place, stacking them where walls used to be, even though everyone knows it's temporary. You clear rubble from streets so carts can pass, even though there's nothing to carry yet. Motion keeps the mind from turning inward. At night, the city is quieter than it's ever been. Not peaceful, hollow. You lie on cold stone and listen to the wind move through broken spaces, making sounds that almost resemble voices. Sleep comes in fragments. You wake reaching for a weapon that isn't there. There is no celebration, no victory feast, just survival and the slow accounting of what that cost. Someone eventually does the numbers, not officially, just whispered. How many died on the walls? How many in the fields? How many taken? The figures don't settle cleanly in your head. They're too big, too abstract. What you understand instead is this. 1 in 4 faces is gone, a generation cut out of the middle. The city council meets in a room that smells of smoke and sweat. Men sitting where others used to sit. Decisions are made with what little remains. How to rebuild, where to plant again, which wells might still be salvageable. There is talk of appeals to distant powers, of aid, of protection. The words sound thin. Everyone remembers who didn't come when the sails first appeared. You walk the walls again one evening, tracing cracks with your fingers. The stone feels different now, fragile, as if it remembers how close it came to failing. You think about how easily it could happen again, how nothing fundamental has changed except that now you know. The enemy didn't stay because it wasn't worth it. Not because you were strong. Not because help arrived. Because the math tipped just barely the other way. That knowledge settles into you heavier than pride ever could. When you finally find out what happened to your wife, it's from someone else's mouth. She made it into the city. She lived through the siege. She didn't survive the sickness after. The words land softly, almost kindly, and still they knock the air out of you. There's no body to bury, no place to go and speak her name. You nod and thank the man for telling you, because that's what's expected. You understand then that survival isn't a clean line drawn between life and death. It's a jagged edge that cuts deep on both sides. The walls are patched enough to stand. The gates swing again. Life resumes in a shape that barely resembles what it was. Children play in dust where houses stood. Farmers plant in soil still black with ash. Fishermen push boats into water that carried death away and brought it back. You keep your place on the wall because someone has to, because next time there may not be enough of you left to fill the gaps, and because now you know exactly what the silence before an army moves sounds like. The months that follow don't feel like aftermath. They feel like exposure, like standing in cold wind with wet skin, waiting to see which parts of you will go numb first. Survival stops being dramatic and becomes logistical. Food, water, labour. Who can still work? Who can't? Who will never again? You learn the new shape of the island by walking it. Villages erased down to outlines. Stone foundations like scars where houses once held heat and voices. Paths that end abruptly where fields were burned so completely the soil turns brittle underfoot. The land doesn't look conquered, it looks punished. Every task is heavier now because there are fewer hands to share it. You feel absence physically, the way a missing beam makes a roof sag. When you lift stones to rebuild walls, you count without meaning to. How many men this would have taken before? How much faster it would have gone? How many jokes would have been told to make the work lighter? The answer is always the same, too many. At night, the dreams change. During the siege, sleep was crowded with motion, hands, blades, falling bodies. Now it's quiet. Too quiet. You dream of empty streets, of voices calling your name from places you can't reach. You wake with your heart racing anyway, body convinced danger is near even when the world is still. People stop saying the names of the taken out loud after a while. Not because they're forgotten, but because speaking them hurts without helping. The island carries them instead, in missing doors, in abandoned tools rusting where they were dropped. You can tell which houses lost everyone by how quickly they fall apart. There are rumours, of course, always rumours, that some of the captives survived the crossing, that some were sold quickly, others held. That ransom might still be possible if enough silver could be gathered. You watch hope rise and collapse around these stories like weak scaffolding. Most families don't have the strength left to climb it. You work the wall until your hands harden again, scars turning pale against darker skin. The repairs are functional, not proud. No ornament, no illusion of permanence, just enough stones stacked in the right places to slow the next wave, because everyone understands now that waves come. Years pass in a way you don't notice until someone points it out. A child you remember crying in the crush is suddenly tall enough to carry water alone. A man who fought beside you now limps with a stick, pain settled into his bones for good. You age faster than you should. Everyone does. The island remains free, technically. Flags still fly. Laws still apply. But independence feels thinner, conditional. You've seen how quickly the world can decide you're not worth the effort. That knowledge doesn't fade, it calcifies. When foreign ships appear on the horizon in later years, traders, envoys, you watch them longer than necessary. You measure sails, count hulls. You never assume benign intent again. Neither does anyone else. Children are taught early which direction to run if horns sound, where to hide, how to stay quiet. The wall becomes less a structure and more a habit. Sometimes, when the wind is right, you think you hear the old sounds again. The low chant from below the wall, the thud of stone on stone. Your muscles tense automatically. Then the moment passes, leaving only the awareness that you are still breathing. You don't tell these things to outsiders. They wouldn't understand the way fear can become practical, even useful, how it sharpens attention, how it keeps you alive. Decades later, strangers arrive who speak of turning the island into something else entirely. A fortress, a line in a much larger war. They bring resources, plans, confidence. They see value here that others ignored. Cannons replace stones. Bastions replace patched walls. The island's skin thickens. They ask about the past, about how you held before any of this existed. You tell them what matters, not about banners or miracles, about timing, about endurance, about how long a human body can function when pushed past reason. You tell them that walls don't hold because they're strong. They hold because the people behind them refuse to move. When you're old, very old, you walk the streets of the city one last time. They're quieter than they were before the siege, but fuller than in the years immediately after. Life returned. Not the same life, a different one, shaped by loss. You stop at a repaired section of wall and place your hand on the stone. It's smoother now, worked by better tools, but underneath, the old blocks remain, the ones you braced with your body, the ones that almost failed. You close your eyes and let the memories come without fighting them. The heat, the noise, the moment when you realized the enemy was leaving, the hollow relief that followed. You understand now what that moment meant, not victory, not safety, just continuation. The island did not win the war, it survived it. There is a difference. Survival leaves residue. It marks the land and the people in ways that don't show up on maps. History will reduce this to numbers, to outcomes, to lines of text that say the city held, the invaders withdrew. It will not record the taste of dust in your mouth, or how your hands shook weeks after the fighting stopped. It will not list the names of those who vanished into ships and never returned. But the stone remembers, the land remembers, and so do you. When you finally lie down for the last time, it isn't with thoughts of glory or sacrifice. It's with a simple, stubborn certainty. The island did not disappear. Against the math, against abandonment, against exhaustion and fear, it stayed. And that was enough.